Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and happy holidays. It is an exciting time of the year, not only because we're coming to the end of the year, but it's also a time when we talk about what happened, what's to come. So, what happened in this year, what's to come next year. So much to recap, but we also talk about new exciting technologies because typically at the end of the year, as we see a funding spree and an acquisition spree and all kinds of new predictions for the next year, we also have exciting new technologies that start to slip their way into our world. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And that technology is quantum. And what is quantum computing? What does it mean? How will it affect us? What will it do to change our lives for hopefully the better and increase our productivity again, hopefully for the better. We're going to be talking about just that here in a moment. But before we do, thank you, audience, for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear, click that subscribe button down there to tune in all day, every day to all episodes of VCTV as we bring the best and the brightest from around the world to share with you their thoughts and insights and on the ground perspective of different technologies, industries, and regions around the world and how they are all intersecting together or converging, as we've been talking a lot here on VCTV about, for not only your day to day, but for the decade ahead, this exciting one we have in front of us. And entrepreneurs, just so you know, this is also an opportunity for you, not just to be on VCTV, but also to get on our virtual stage to pitch us your company, product, or service, get real-time feedback, and exposure to our live audience. What better way to end the year and start the next than doing just that? Reach out to the team and or myself to find the right spot for you. And a huge thank you to that team at LATOKEN and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. And for more episodes and all episodes of VCTV, go to the URL right up here. I hope that's the right angle. If not, one of these two sides will make sure that it happens. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's dive in and introduce our guest, Jose, the man of many hats. A little intro and a little background.
Hi, Kyle. Happy to be here on this quantum computing show today. My name is Jose Graca. I've been a serial entrepreneur now for many, many years, several decades. I rolled in as a business angel after my first exit, and then eventually I became a VC, a government advisor for fintech in SME world. I also have done some advising for venture capital companies, especially in Europe. And I still am an entrepreneur in the sense that sometimes I become a lead investor, like in BizMoney. And I'm always on the lookout for talent that I like to get into pre-seed and seed stage most of the times. And I think that's basically it.
I think that's a great description. And thank you, Jose. We're excited to have you. And, I was switching gears over to our other panelist who loves, eats, and breathes quantum. You didn't think it was possible, but it is. The Grand Master of Artificial Intelligence, soon to be the Grand Master of Quantum and
Here we
everything
go.
within it.
I gotta tell you, Jose, I don't even know what to say anymore. It's like
I subscribe definitely.
I don't know. I mean, I was gonna say I'm not worthy. I'm a country boy, Kyle. Come on. I'm from a little village in Pennsylvania. Come on. I don't even know what you're talking about here, but I appreciate it. Anyhow, my name's Gary Fowler, and as I said many times, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love AI and quantum computing. I believe the world's we're into a fundamental change. I've done 16 companies, been involved in 2 unicorns. Click Software sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion. I was on the original team, and Eva.ai, which is $1 billion AI HR tech company. I founded, I guess, 4.5 years ago. So we searched the world looking for incredible AI, now quantum computing companies that have a chance to put a dent in the universe. And I don't say as from a physics standpoint or astrophysics, I mean, make a change. I got to be careful now because I'm talking to these quantum physicists that a dent in the universe means something to them.
So very, very true. It's a totally different connotation. Yeah. I mean, you're right. A dent in the universe is a whole different world.
I had to catch myself. I had a conversation with one of the PhD quantum physicists, and I said dent in the universe on Zoom, and he looked at me in a strange way. I thought, he's not going to get it. Forget about it. Or should I said time bending? Maybe that would have got his attention, right?
There you go. There you go. And Gary, take us down that rabbit hole. I mean, what is quantum computing? What does it mean in today's context? I mean, quantum, we've heard, in a serious side on the academic world. We've heard it in the professional world, and we've also heard it in the entertainment world and around science fiction. And now coming full circle to science fact, what is quantum computing, and what does it look like here as we end 2020 and look at 2021?
Well, so I mean, I'll keep it simple, right? So quantum computers, and essentially what you have is a system that, as Google has done in a lab, can operate up to 100 million times faster than a conventional computer. So what does that mean? That means the problems that would take normally 10,000 years to solve on a conventional computer could be solved in 100 seconds. So we're talking about incredible speed. So in another example, Gary Kasparov in 1997, when he went against IBM's Blue, it took about 100. If you looked at how many transactions it went through, it went about through 200 million transactions second possibilities. The quantum computer could not do 200 million, but in 1 second could do 1 trillion each second. So imagine the possibilities. Look at the amount of data around us. I mean, we're inundated with data. So as I've said numerous times, there's about 40 zettabytes of data on the planet. If I stacked a CD or DVD, one on top of another, that would be 29 times going back and forth to the moon. So incredible amounts of data that's increasing every year. It's 62% per year, approximately. So we're inundated. Now, the difference between a quantum computer and a conventional computer is it doesn't represent data bits as zeros and ones. And, Kyle, our world is not black and white, is it? It's a bit gray. So, an easy way to think about it is any website or folder or application on device is comprised of millions of zeros and ones or bits. So what this does is this actually uses what in quantum speak is called the qubit. So instead of taking those traditional values, it has a capacity to take multiple values at one time. And they call this superposition. So this is why it's so powerful. So it allows computers to look past the basic models and to be able to deal with uncertainty of the real world today. So where we are is we're really, in terms of civilization, with quantum and AI, and I can talk about areas where you can use it, but this is the difference between now we're in the Stone Age, and we're going to the point where we have computers, supercomputers. But that time, the difference is we're doing it in a matter of seconds. I mean, that's the kind of impact it's going to have on our society. So we're not going to be building fire with sticks. We've moved now into this, I hate to say it, Kyle, because there was a TV show called Quantum Leap, but really a quantum leap forward. So they got it right with the show, but it truly is a quantum leap forward. And I'm incredibly excited because every single day, I am talking to companies around the world that are looking at the most innovative technologies. And I actually yesterday was on a call with a group out of Australia in quantum computing. Most of those companies are coming out of universities, right? Because they have the money and they have grants to be able to support it. So you're going to look at quantum computers. It's not like you're going to have one in your house. Well, at some point, maybe, but I doubt it. You're going to more like timeshare, like the old days where you have some time on this system to be able to run all kinds of things. So it's incredible time. And it's, I'm writing a lot about it. I've got another article called Quantum Computers, AI and Cybersecurity that's coming out in Forbes. So it caught my attention about 3.5 months ago deeply. And we actually had a conversation on VCTV. I got to tell you give me a lot of ideas, Kyle, and Jose too, a lot of ideas. And so, yeah, it's a dawn of a new era. And the companies that do not take this seriously are going to be in deep, deep, deep trouble because our lives are changing. Cybersecurity, as we know it today, won't be in existence. We'll move into a state we call quantum encryption. So that are super secure, The difference between today and traditional traditional cybersecurity is going to be incredibly hackable. So I suggest companies, once quantum starts to move forward just a little bit more, that you start to very carefully think about getting into quantum, because if you don't, you're going to be easily hacked.
And speaking of universities and not yet in our homes, when it comes to quantum computers, just to separate quantum computing and computers, there's only a handful of those quantum computers out there. Is that correct?
Yeah. So right now, IBM, Microsoft, and Google, are each one of them today are in this quantum computing race, and a lot of others, but those three, I know of. And so the key is, in fact, Google just announced that, I guess about a year and a half ago, that they claim quantum supremacy on their computer, where the quantum computer performed better than the traditional computers, and exponentially better than the traditional computers. So it's an exciting time. And the good news is that we understand that the quantum works, quantum's being tested, and it's being implemented. And I look at it, Kyle. So a couple of weeks ago, I was on a drug panel. I was the AI expert, supposedly. I don't know why they asked me, but they said, "Would you do it?" I said, "Sure." But
Grandmaster of artificial intelligence. I can
I
tell
don't
you
know
why.
I don't know about a grandmaster. Whenever you say that, I feel like Dungeons and Dragons or something. I don't know why. I feel like I should have a robe and a hood and like a stick in my hand. So another movie. But so it's an incredible time, and I'm excited that we've started to move towards this journey. We are inundated with data, and you talk to anybody and you ask them about their own personal cloud, they just, we can't even track our own email anymore. We PowerPoint presentations. Where did this message come? Just like we talked about earlier, right? We are in a state of infobesity. We need to have evolving technology, particularly with artificial intelligence, that it can help us make better decisions. And we had better go down through, as I've written in several articles, and nurture the artificial intelligence with the right training sets, so we don't get totally pragmatic systems. We want to have some that have compassion, because if they're totally pragmatic, they may not like us.
It's interesting, and I want to switch gears real quick, Jose, to you. I mean, anything to add around quantum computing and how you see it going forward in 2021, or even today, maybe what you've experienced over the past year?
Well, I will pick up where Gary left it and add some extra on top of it. So first of all, we need to understand that we know how it works, and we know how to apply it, but the problem is that we don't have found the right materials to make it really happen. And that's the big problem. So we have been testing it out on atoms and photons, and my opinion, there is one material, I've been researching it quite deep, because I got confronted with it. I was giving some help to a South Korean company, and it's an X amount of years ago. And there is one material that could eventually fit into this, because it's a very, very special material, and it's very abundant, available on Earth, which is graphene, right? So graphene, the basis of graphene is carbon. But what happens is it's the smallest nano atom that we have. So it means that you can have like 3 million layers on 1 millimeter. Okay, imagine that you have 1 millimeter of silicon, and you can have 3 million layers inside that silicon, right? Now, if you look at quantum computing, and Gary made a very good exposure of the whole concept, and what people need to understand is that the quantum supremacy is basically like this. You need to have a 0 and a 1 at the same time. Once that happens, then it means that it never stops, because a traditional computer has zeros and ones, right? Constantly. But imagine that you can have zeros and ones at the same time, constantly, right? And simultaneously in several places. That's what makes it so powerful. And I think one thing is overlooked is that traditional computers are very secure executional machines. You know, a 0 is a 0 and a 1 is a 1. But in quantum computing, you have an error factor. So what you need to figure out is to get that error factor as minimum as possible. So far, we have not been able to get that error factor to 0. So what they say is they go more or less for statistical proof, right? And they say, well, if we know for, let's say, 99.5% accuracy, okay, then we accept that it's 100% as an example, right? But you can have the problem that 0.5% hits. And if that's the case, then you are out. It means that, you know, you are making a wrong decision. So I don't know how they're going to solve it. Gary made a very good exposure also of the people who are involved today, researching all this, and definitely the big guys. This is not something for a small company to be able to execute, or the universities, right? The Chinese are heavily investing into this. Okay, it's not. I think today the Chinese are the ones that have the highest investment in the world in quantum computing, because they want to make a position that they are going to be at the forefront of this, so powerful that it is. I believe strongly that for military purposes, it's already available. We don't know how. They probably struggle with the same problems that the materials, you know. But you know, I strongly believe that sooner or later this will come out. One thing I want to add to this is the following, and I've been listening to what we have said in the last 15 minutes, more or less, is that our daily life, the speed that we are going in our daily life, okay, is not acceptable anymore. What I mean is that you are not able to process whatever is happening in your whole life on a daily basis. So that brings you to some kind of a frustration that you feel that you're not productive and you're not accomplishing anything at the end of the day, because you have so many stuff still to be completed that was not able to complete, right? Mm-hmm. So the only way we can get out of this issue is that we need, and that's what I'm always saying that BizMoney is doing, and maybe you are able to understand, or the public is able to understand what I'm talking about, is that you need to have machines doing that work for you. And I give you a simple example. Calculate this, or give me the result for that, or find me client in this area, or, you know, those type of commands, right? Mm-hmm. You are not going to be able, with the amount of things that are running around you all the time, you need to become, what I say, a Fortune 500 CEO. Mm-hmm. There is no other way. You cannot continue like writing on your computer or looking at your phone constantly. The results need to come to you. You give an instruction, you get the result. Even if that result takes, let's say, an hour or 15 minutes or 3 days, doesn't matter. You need to become a Fortune 500 CEO. And that is where we are heading, either business-wise or personal life. And it doesn't matter if you are a very micro company or a self-man or a one-man show, or you are a big company. It will work for everybody in the same way. Mm-hmm. And that's basically the root. Now, quantum computing, if it would come out, would definitely enable that, mm-hmm. probably much more. But today, we don't need quantum computing to come up with that solution, at least for the first stages. You know, what we have today, traditional computing is fine, and you can scale it almost unlimited today with cloud computing, you know. So you can make it happen. And if you put artificial intelligence on top of it, and I would even say deep learning, because machine learning today is coming to its limits. But deep learning in combination with artificial intelligence, yes, you can make this happen today. So, you know.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I actually want to switch gears over, Gary, back to you on that. Is, you know, you mentioned quantum computing really changing the game when it comes to certain things like encryption, and there's been a lot of conversation as well around blockchain and what the effect it may have when quantum computing gets thrown against it. How do you see quantum maybe disrupting or kind of throwing off balance some of these newer technologies that companies are integrating into their technology infrastructure? So something like blockchain or something like artificial intelligence. How do you see quantum either boosting or really putting a forced change, if you will, into what they are today?
You know, it's funny, Kyle, because I watched this. Was a Godfather, I guess, and I
Mhm.
remember they said forget about it. You know what I mean? So let's just say nothing good's going to happen to blockchain when quantum computers come on board. Nothing good.
Mhm.
So I did want to go back to one point though, because Jose talked about error. So I just
Mhm.
want to paint a picture so everybody can understand what we're talking about. So when we look at quantum error correction, yes, you're right. And the idea is to be able to correct it. Now, imagine one of the pictures we need to paint is that error correction, that the errors are kind of like erosion, right? You can stop it, but you can reduce it, but you can't stop it.
Mhm.
So what we need to do is we actually use them, the qubits and multiple qubits to be able to form uh, a qubit to be able to slow down that error protection, that those errors. And so that's what we have. The other thing is they're unstable because whenever you got, photons, you got atoms, you got all kinds of things in there. You can't move them around. They're highly fragile. So there's a lot to go, but the opportunity is we're just in the beginning of this. So were light bulbs at the beginning of the 20th century. It wasn't, we didn't know exactly how they would work. Although I got to say, light bulbs then lasted a lot longer than light bulbs now because we didn't have
Mhm.
market. In fact,
That
Edison's
very
light
true.
bulb is still in Fort Myers, Florida, one of the original light bulbs in his house, right? He and Henry Ford had houses over there. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So, so it's an exciting time in terms of, so we have issues. I mean, governments, I'm sure, I'm sure positive they're down the quantum path because they need to be able to defend when these things get turned on in a massive way. I mean, imagine you can't control the grid. There's nothing. I mean, literally, airlines, all the flights in the air, you could hold countries hostage just based on that.
Mhm.
Everything. So
Mhm.
we need to be able to develop the systems to defend, and uh, that's where we are with it. And the good news is that we've moved forward. My hope is that we use it for the goodness of humanity and we cover, instead of doing the bad stuff that humanity's done, we look at the good and how to be able to create new drugs to fight all kinds of diseases, how to live longer, how to live better quality lives, how to be able to develop better food sources for people, how to be able to clean water, develop more potable water, answers a lot of the questions of global warming, be able to help
Mhm.
us chart our directions into space. And I mean, we're just, we're like little tiny kids. We're like kids that, are children, babies that are, a couple days old in our journey
Mhm.
to being an adult. An adult means being able to explore the universe. So the quantum computer is going to open up a lot of different ways for us to do it. Imagine all the questions in physics that can be answered when you have a system that's that powerful.
Mhm. Well, and that's a good point too. I mean, we look at how cloud computing really came into our world and then changed the way that we built applications and the way that we accessed data and really brought us into this era that we're in right now. And when you start to bring in this next level of quantum computing, in addition to distributed computing and even going with computing at the edge, I mean, now you've got this entire, I mean, it's even hard to process to say, you know, this computing power all day every day on anything, at various levels. I mean, it's just incredible and I'm not even doing a good job explaining it. Usually I am, but right now I can't just even
Kyle,
fathom
all
it.
you gotta just say is Skynet.
It is. I mean, look, you take cloud computing for what it is today, you expand that to the edge and throw in the bigger picture of distributed computing, and then you throw quantum computers, so the few that we have, but then the many that will come into that mix, and all of our devices, right? As we spoke about on our previous episode of VCTV, and all of the other connected devices we have, you now have this forever intense level of computing. I mean, what you can do or what you cannot do.
I don't know what you can do, but what it can do, and it can do it on its own.
Right.
Yeah.
So
what it can do, and I vision a future where, we're some people are looked at as bad citizens and not doing the right thing for humanity, and they get corrected. We'll be like kids. I mean, seriously, we'll be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And so, we're creating a very interesting future, and we'd also better be sure that we teach the artificial intelligence. It's like Morpheus, right? David's going down through and teaching Morpheus right now. And by the way, Morpheus is my friend's AI in his house. Morpheus is getting a lot smarter and making a lot better decisions. So we need to train it right, because the last thing we want is Charles Manson.
Well, okay. So side question here, AI, quantum, what does that world look like? And Morpheus, I know, plays a role in this, but just in the bigger picture, I mean, quantum, all of those devices, and I heard a ping in my ear, so maybe I triggered something, but with quantum, all these devices, the power of processing, how does artificial intelligence advance? I mean, do we see AI, and I'm putting that in a big bucket, so I apologize. You can further define it for us, but does AI all of a sudden take a quantum leap? For a lack of a better pun? I mean, are we seeing artificial intelligence jump, 10, 15 years in a matter of just one or two because of the processing power that quantum computing brings?
Jose, go ahead. I mean, I can answer.
What I would like to say was the coding itself will not be the same as today. It will be completely different. The instructions that we give today, look, coding today is I don't want to say a bad word, but it's like a pain in something, right? And because after 3 years, you need to patch it. Every 3 years you need to patch it. Technology goes so fast that you need to patch it. So now you have this issue that they are coming with what they call low code, but they block you into an environment that you almost not can get out. So there are some solutions that that are a little bit more friendly, that you can get out whenever you want to a native code. But in essence, what it does is that it produces code, okay, by itself. So that will enable what they call citizens development. But this is today, right? If we look at the future, the way I look at it, these quantum computers should be able to produce code by themselves, because I don't see any problem. There is no way any coder can do anything, at the speed and the intelligence that is behind it. I cannot even foresee that. So I don't believe that will happen. What I believe is that our lives will be taken over by a lot of stuff, including robotization driven by quantum computing in the background. And it can not even be inside the robot, because what they are talking about now, what they say, like edge, right? So what happens is that a lot of stuff is processed outside, and basically you get the instructions inside. So imagine that you have this super powerful cloud quantum computing. Okay, look at it like this in the extreme, right? So everything is processed inside, and the instruction is given, and the machine just produces its constant connection. So what are you as a coder going to be doing there? Nothing. There's so many things that are going to be take over that we might be thinking about. A lot of people say like passive income, right? No, let's put it like this. It's more be passive life. You go to the beach and you do some other things. You let the machines work for you. You take a other approach to life, And yes, from time to time, but unfortunately or fortunate wise, we produce things for consumption for humans, right? So if you don't have humans, why do you need a quantum computer? You know, you don't need all that
Well,
stuff, right?
if you want to go down that path, I mean, why do we need any computing? If we don't have humans, why do we need any computing? If you want to go down that path, but
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead and finish your thought. Apologies.
yeah. So if you don't have humans, right, and you don't are producing nothing for our species, then then you don't need it. So what we need to think is that it's produced for us, and the objective is that we as species can move forward, right? And if we want to do space traveling, real properly space traveling, if we want to be able to solve very complex things for us today, like finding vaccines or solutions, etc., there is no other way than doing it with quantum computing and whatever comes afterwards. That's the issue. So either we embrace it, or we're not going to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Gary, anything to add?
Well, in terms of, I agree in terms of embracing it. You were asking in terms of, you know, so why quantum computers? I mean, the net it's the massive amount of data it's around us and being able to process that data. So the quantum computers gives us a chance to do that, and also with the NLP to be able to do it much more efficiently and effectively. So there are questions. I mean, these questions. I remember seeing old cartoons on YouTube. They were in 1920, 1930, and there was Superman, and the evil scientist was Nikola Tesla. Basically, they caricatured Tesla because people were afraid. Well, it's kind of like where we are today with quantum computers. I mean, people didn't understand electricity. They didn't understand remote controlled vehicles. They didn't understand his cellular phone methodology, X-rays. And they were so afraid of him that so they were so afraid that they painted him in a bad light. And that's where we are with quantum. But it's humanity. We got to get our act together. We need to treat people fairly and right, and we need to make sure the systems, the training sets, also reflect humanity. So if we do it right, we're in good shape. And if we don't do it right, I mean, there's one thing about not needing the computers, but what about if the computers don't need us?
Mm-hmm.
And that could
Mm-hmm.
come if you could start about these quantum states and the higher levels of consciousness. Things could change, and we need to make sure we're doing the right stuff, treating things. I saw this thing, Kyle, very recently. I don't know if you saw it, but a guy was kicking a robot. Did you see that? The robotic
I did.
dog. And
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, it's the first time I actually felt really lousy for that robot. And I don't know what it was, but it made me like, we better not do those kind of things, because when the
Right.
systems start to learn, that thing will tear your leg off. you know?
Right. Right. Well, and it's that next stage, right? The next stage of humanity, or in some cases innovation as well, right? Where we go from here, as well. And I want to come to you both as we're coming to close here, as your closing thoughts and predictions for 2021 around quantum and quantum computing, and of course where you can be found. So Jose, let's kick it off with you. Where do you think? Where do you see quantum going in 2021? Any closing thoughts, and where can you be found online?
So I'm going to repeat something that I said in another show, is that, and this is basically an extension what Gary said and what you said also a few minutes ago. We are basically moving into what I call virtual life. That's a virtual life which lives by itself, and it has nothing to do with our physical life, and it's not about us. But we could eventually, if the technology is enabling us, we could eventually transform ourselves into that virtual life, or get into that. And there is a scientist, just to finish here, that is trying to do that, by the way. Okay. He is spending a lot of money in that, because he loves his wife so much that he always thinks if he loses his wife, he's not able to move forward. So what he has been doing, he made a lot of cash in other areas. He is trying to put all her memories and her way of acting into a computer. Okay. Now extend that to a quantum computer, right? That you could take that and put it in. So eventually, we don't know where that's going to end. If we are talking about nano atoms, so many things can happen. So I will leave it like that. You can find me on LinkedIn, on the Jose Grasa, or on the Biz Money, and I'm an open network. You're most welcome to contact me. Either you need help, or you need investment, or you need advice, please contact me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jose. And all the best wishes and good luck and respect for that individual doing it. However, we have seen some science fiction movies where that did not turn out so well. So I hope it is the opposite and turns out very good for them. But that being said, Gary, to you, closing thoughts, your prediction on 2021 quantum, and where can you be found online to continue the conversation?
Yeah, I just want to say, Jose, there is a company out there that does that. I don't know if you know Zhenya Kuyuda, who does Replica. And she told me a chilling story. In fact, your partner was with me at the party, the Venture Beat party at his house. And she was telling me the story that her partner died and she actually created him in this replica. So his personality and everything. And she talks to him. And so if you go to Replica, Replika, you can actually see it. And so imagine being able to take your loved ones and have them forever, right? Taking their personality, looking at all the writings that they do, understanding how they speak and talk, and getting a clip of their voice. I mean, basically in creating that person. So what you're saying, I mean, if you go to that site, you'll see they do it. And she was telling me this chilly story of recreating her partner, and basically, the actions, his actions of being able to still converse with him. So we're not that far away from it. And on one side, it's scary. On the other side, it feels really good because it would be nice to be able to talk to your parents or your grandparents again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be really interesting. But we are moving into some kind of interesting world, and it's coming much faster than anybody thinks. And just buckle your seatbelt because it's going to be an interesting quantum leap forward. You can reach me, Gary Fowler. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can reach me on Twitter, Gary@gsdvs.com. I've got a couple of shows. You're welcome to watch GSD Presents and Gary's Picks. So check it out. Love VCTV. Great job, Kyle, and the entire VCTV team. It's great to be here. Feels good.
Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you, Jose, as well. And thank you to your audience for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us the thumbs up. Thank you, Jose and Gary. Also reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today's, talking about quantum computing or other technologies, industries, and regions around the world. Joining Jose, Gary, and many of our other speakers here on VCTV. We'd love to have you share your thoughts and insights and on-the-ground perspective. And also entrepreneurs, again, what better way to end the year and kick off the next than joining us here on the virtual stage at VCTV to pitch us your company, product, or service, along with getting real-time feedback from us and exposure to our live audience as well. Reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find that right spot for you. And speaking of that team, a big thank you to LATOKEN and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and you can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, along with Jose and Gary on their respective websites. Thank you, Jose and Gary. Along with VCTV and all of our episodes on LATOKEN.com. With that being said, we'll be back here tomorrow with more VCTV to finish